Hey good looking, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to be featuring a Duping the Vibes of the Gucci Beaute des Fleurs or des Yeux Floral eyeshadow palette. Sorry, that's French. I had to look it up, so it should be pronounced correctly. So I'm going to be taking you guys on some up close and impersonal juicy swatches of the shadows that I put in place and inspired from the Gucci palette. And then I'm also going to give you guys my thoughts and opinions on the palette, and I'm going to show you guys yeah, that's it. That's pretty much it. So I decided to dig deep into an age-old, like timeless and beautiful, just all-around well-rounded formula of eyeshadows, and that is my Makeup Geek shadows. I feel like not very many people can argue with me that Makeup Geek just has a really tried and true formula that just really has stood the test of time, the way that I feel that Gucci as a brand has. And that's kind of how I would expect their eyeshadows to perform. I really drew inspiration from the packaging of this. I think it's gorgeous. As a brand, Gucci can really just charge whatever they want to charge, so I'm not here to say, well, it's too much or it's not enough or whatever and whatnot. Before we get into my full disclosure and thoughts and opinions, let's go ahead and get into the swatches of me duping the vibes of the Gucci Beaute des Yeux Floral eyeshadow palette. I'll get it one of these days. I went through, searched around in my Makeup Geek shadows that I have, and I found some shadows that I thought really were beautiful shades that I could use to dupe the vibes of this palette. We're starting off with the palette in its entirety, and I do want to mention that there is one shade that I pulled from a Pat McGrath, and we'll get into that shortly. The first shadow is Corrupt, and it's a black matte shadow. It's my blackest shadow that I own. It's tried and true. It's just really good workhorse. This shadow is Violet Void, and it is from the Celestial Divinity Pat McGrath palette, but it's one of the Star Wars 6-pan palettes that she has. It's just really glitzy, it's really timeless, it's very sophisticatedly beautiful. Then I moved into some square pans in the Spotlight by Makeup Geek. The rest of these are going to be Makeup Geek, by the way. This is just a really beautiful peachy shimmer. It's what I have all over my lids today. It's really all around really good. Honey Badger is the shade I use in place of Gardenia Rose. Or excuse me, Anemone Orange. Sorry. Sometimes my notes don't always prove to be so good, but this is just a really good warm tone tan brown, and it leans more orange. Vanilla Bean is the shade I used in place of Jasmine Blanc, and that is, I think it's got a pink undertone to it, but it's kind of that matte beige white, if you will. I'm building up the swatch to its full opacity so you guys can see the shadow and what its true color is. Then I'm moving on to Bellini, which is in place of Erosa Douce, which is the number 6 shade, so the last shadow in the top row. Really beautiful pinky matte shadow, very good on the eyes. It's easy to use. So let's start with the bottom row. First shade is going to be Code Blue, and that goes in place of Aster Celeste, and it's a really good shade for the blue. I feel like it's super pigmented. I know in the swatch it doesn't really show that well, but it is very nice. Then I move into a brand new shade that Makeup Geek has released, and that is this shade Charmed. Beautiful foiled formula. And this is kind of a green taupe. It's like a green leaning silver. You can see it's got really high luster, just like in the Spotlight, both the same formula, that foiled formula. Followed by Had Me at Yellow. This is a nice, beautiful yellow beige matte. It's kind of that mustard pukey matte that I think of when I look at the Natasha Denona gold palette. And I don't build it up too terribly much here in opacity, but you can see it's kind of got that grungy vibe. I'm taking it all the way back to old school Makeup Geek rounds. Cabin Fever is going to be in place of Cidre Brune, which I think and it translates into English cedar brown. Not quite as warm as I'd like it to be, but still leaning on the warm side. This is a very nice mid-tone brown. I use Steampunk in place of Place Fleur Violet. You'll have to excuse my French. I don't know a lick of French. And I forgot to look these up ahead of time, but I'm just trying to kind of muddle my way through them, so you'll have to excuse me. But Steampunk is considered a duochrome. The last shade in the palette is Tinseltown, just a really good all-around beautiful kind of a taupey brown shade. Well, no, it looks more taupey silver. And these are the shades that I chose to pick out to dupe those vibes of Gucci's brand new eyeshadow palette Beaute des Yeux Floral. And you can see that the pops of color really would appeal to an audience that's kind of younger, innovative, trendy, maybe even perhaps. But also the neutral baseline that the shadow palette gives you is really going to speak to your more mature audience or neutral lovers. What do you think of the shadows that I picked out from Makeup Geek to dupe the vibes of this new Gucci palette? And how do you feel about the packaging of this Gucci palette? Let me know in the comments down below. And let's get into some final thoughts of how I feel about this Gucci palette. I didn't even know Gucci made eyeshadow palettes, and then I looked back through, and they do put out some quads similar to Tom Ford. They look very timeless, very classy, very elegant, and they very much appeal to an audience with a certain status quo, if you will, or somebody who is trying to fulfill that status quo. So I just don't, I mean, your Pat McGrath audience wouldn't probably appreciate any of these types of shadows, nor would a lot of indie shadow lovers appeal to this type of palette. I found it very inspirational because that pop of purple really spoke to me. Now, I think that as a person looking at this palette, what I see is somebody who's like a businesswoman or man who wears makeup, and they're prestigious, they're high up in their company, they might have like some Louis Vuitton, or maybe they have some Gucci luggage, and they're going on a business trip, and for the most part they're going to wear these neutral shadows, and then in the evening time on their last day before they have to leave, they're going to let their hair down, and they're going to, you know, hit the bar, some classy bar downtown with some nice, beautiful, romantic lights, and they're going to slip into some of these more seductive, darker, richer, more romantic shades, and then you've got this black here to really, really deepen and make the look super sultry. That's what I see in this. I chose to use Pat McGrath's shade Violet Void for this purple just to kind of zazz it up a little bit. It really doesn't dupe the shade that well in the palette, but if you look at the shadows in the pan and then you look at the swatches, some of them don't really match up, or at least it didn't for me. So I kind of had to improvise or squint, kind of read between the lines, if you will, and put some thought and some effort into like what would look cohesive overall, and does it look good for a palette of this maturity state. I featured this look today, and I just used basically all of these shades right here from Vanilla Bean, setting the eyelids, slipping some of this Bellini in the crease, and then wiping some of this in the spotlight over the lid for a pop of shimmer. I deepened it up just ever so slightly with this in the corner. That's how I got my look. Very effortless, very easy, and I feel like it's very much appropriate for somebody who would be like on a work schedule where they just don't have a lot of time to dip into makeup. This isn't something that they are, you know, this isn't their hobby, this is for their job. And that's really what I see it for. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I really enjoyed putting some shadows together and getting back to some of my neutral roots that I really truly enjoy, because the last couple of palettes that I've duped have been really color heavy, which I do enjoy and appreciate. But at this point in my life, I feel the neutral vibes coming in. I feel those neutral fall shadows coming into play. So I think we're going to go ahead and save the savings counter this time, and I'll put it in the next one, because I do want to add in the shadows from my live streams and add those all up as well. But basically, I've saved $149 by using some shadows that I found in my collection to dupe the vibes of the brand new Gucci Beaute des Yeux Floral eyeshadow palette. Hopefully that was pretty close. I'm not sure. Don't grade me on my French. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I can't wait to see you guys in my next video. Bye!